I'm Harper Lane, 34 years old, living in Seattle, Washington. I'm the chief financial officer at a luxury design firm downtown by day. By night, I was, until recently, the loyal wife of Darren, my college boyfriend turned husband of 11 years. People always said we were the perfect pair, like two puzzle pieces that just clicked. I believed that once. I don't anymore. For most of our marriage, I thought we had something real. We built a life together from the ground up. First the tiny rental in Capitol Hill, then our craftsman home with the navy shutters, a shared Google Calendar for vacations, couples brunches with mutual friends, matching passwords. I memorized his coffee order, and he claimed no one made better French toast than me. It was those little things that tricked me into believing we were solid. It was a Thursday morning just like any other. I'd hit snooze twice, dragging myself out of bed and into the bathroom. The sun peeked through the slats of our bedroom blinds, casting warm stripes across the hardwood. I was brushing my teeth, still half asleep, when Darren's phone lit up on the counter beside me. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even looking for anything. But the screen lit up bright and bold like a spotlight, exposing something I wasn't supposed to see. The message preview floated across the screen like a red flag in the wind. Can't wait for the weekend wine, the cabin, and that red lace set. Counting the hours, face blowing a kiss. I froze, toothbrush suspended midair, foam gathering at the corners of my lips. For a moment, I thought my heart had stopped. Everything in me went silent, except for the soft buzzing of the electric toothbrush in my hand. My mouth went dry. My limbs turned to stone. He was in the shower, humming like nothing was wrong. Water cascaded down his back, steam fogged up the mirror, and I stood just a few feet away, watching my life shift off its axis. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the phone or throw open the shower door and demand an explanation. But I didn't. I just stood there, rinsed my mouth, and spit out a truth I hadn't even fully digested yet. He stepped out of the shower minutes later, towel wrapped around his waist, looking relaxed and freshly scrubbed. He leaned in to kiss my cheek like he always did. "I've got a client retreat in Portland this weekend," he said casually, brushing a drop of water from his brow. "Leaving tomorrow. Should be back Sunday night." I nodded, keeping my voice level. "Sounds good. Text me when you get there." He kissed my forehead and padded off to the closet, completely unaware the ground beneath our marriage had just split wide open. That night, he was asleep by 10. Like always. He had no idea I was still wide awake next to him, lying on my side, staring into the dark. My mind was a loop of that message, her emoji, the mention of the cabin, and that red lace set. It burned into my brain like a cruel brand. I rolled over slowly, careful not to wake him. His breathing was steady, deep, and peaceful. I envied that. I reached for his phone on the nightstand, my hand barely trembling. He always used his thumb to unlock it. I remembered which one. I took his hand gently, pressed it to the scanner, and the screen lit up. Unlocked. The phone opened like a door I was never meant to walk through, but I did. What I found inside was worse than anything I had imagined. This wasn't a one-night mistake or a flirty text. This was a full-blown affair. Months of messages. Photos. Videos. Hotel bookings, weekend trips, shared playlists with nauseating titles like Our Escape. Code names. Jokes I didn't understand. Inside references I wasn't part of. Playlists named after memories that were never mine. Gifts, real ones, were sent to her. Jewelry. A cashmere wrap. Spa packages. And that red lace set? She'd sent him a mirror selfie in it just last week. In our bedroom mirror. Her name was Clara Delaney. A wellness coach. One of those ethereal types, plant-based eating, morning meditations, crystals, manifest your dream life energy. She posted affirmations daily, talked about honoring your inner truth. It made me sick. But what hit hardest was that she was married, too, to a man named Ethan Delaney. It didn't take me long to find him. A quick Google search led me to his firm's page, Delaney and Partners, Commercial Real Estate. His face smiled from a staff photo, like someone who didn't know his life was being carved out from beneath him. I stared at his image for a long while. Then I compiled everything, screenshots, timestamps, messages, photos, and sent it to his work email with a short message. You don't know me, but I believe your wife and my husband are in love. We should talk. I expected a delay, some hesitation. But Tyler called me the next morning. His voice was low and shaken, like someone caught in a landslide mid-step. This is Harper. Yes, I answered, my voice softer than I felt. I was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee long since gone cold, fingers curled around my phone like it was an anchor. I saw the messages, he said. All of it. Thank you for telling me. I don't even know what to say. I don't either, I said honestly. I just thought you should know. There was a long pause. Can we meet? We decided on a cafe in Ellensburg. It was neutral territory, far enough from both our homes to feel like a buffer. I needed that space. I needed to not see Seattle's skyline when I told this story out loud. I drove there in silence, windshield wipers brushing away a fine morning mist. My hands were cold on the steering wheel, but my mind was clear. It was the kind of clarity that comes after betrayal, sharp and clean like broken glass. When I walked into the cafe, Tyler was already there. He sat alone in a corner booth, an untouched coffee in front of him. He looked like a man who hadn't slept either. Eyes shadowed, shirt wrinkled, face older than the one in his firm staff photo. He stood when he saw me. You look exactly like someone who hasn't slept. Right back at you, I said with a tired smile. We sat. I handed him a manila folder filled with printed screenshots, hotel receipts, and booking confirmations. The digital mess is laid out in black and white. Tyler flipped through it slowly, like he was reading the last pages of a book he didn't want to finish. That cabin, he said finally, voice tight. That's mine. I designed it myself. It was supposed to be our place to unplug from the world. He stared at the table. She's been taking him there? I nodded. This weekend, too. He clenched his jaw and looked away, then exhaled through his nose, slow and bitter. I still have a spare key. And in that moment, something shifted. Not revenge, not rage, but something like resolve. Like two strangers, quietly stepping into a shared storm. We didn't need to say anything else for a while. We just sat there. Two strangers bound by the same betrayal, each quietly mourning a version of life we thought was real. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy, grounded. The kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled because it already says too much. Tyler finally took a long sip of his lukewarm coffee, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath the whole time. Then he looked at me again, eyes clear and direct. What do you want to do? It was a question I hadn't let myself answer out loud until that moment. I stared at the table for a beat, then met his gaze. I don't want to scream or break things, I said. I want them to see our faces when their lies finally fall apart. I want them to feel the weight of what they've done. He gave a slow nod. Then we show up.
Calm.
Unshaken. Let them carry the weight. We didn't speak much after that. But the plan was clear. We agreed to meet at the cabin that Sunday morning, hours before they were due to return from their weekend getaway. I drove separately, my hands gripping the steering wheel the whole way, knuckles white. My heart thumped like a warning drum. Part of me still hoped I'd wake up from this, that it had all been some twisted dream. But as I turned off the gravel road and saw the cabin tucked between the fog-laced evergreens, I knew it was all real. The place was beautiful. Painfully so. All the charm I'd seen in Claire's carefully curated Instagram photos was here in full color. Modern pine paneling, sleek black trim, a wraparound porch with chairs positioned perfectly to watch the sunrise. It felt like stepping into someone else's fantasy. And knowing it was mine and Darren's money paying for it only deepened the sting. Tyler arrived minutes later in a black SUV. He stepped out, calm and collected, dressed in dark jeans and a flannel, like someone who belonged in the woods but was here for a funeral. He looked at me and asked quietly, "You sure about this?" I wasn't. Not really. But I nodded anyway. Let's do it. Inside, the cabin was just as pristine. Throw blankets neatly draped, candles on the mantel, a soft citrus and cedar scent hanging in the air. I swallowed a bitter taste as I walked through the space, imagining how many times they laughed here, whispered lies in these corners. We set the scene together. 2 wine glasses on the table, a soft lamp on in the corner, the fireplace crackling low. Tyler pulled out 2 chairs and placed them directly in front of the entrance. I laid out all the evidence, printed screenshots, bank statements, receipts, neatly across the coffee table like puzzle pieces waiting to be solved. Then we sat. No yelling, no pacing, just silence and the slow build of a coming storm. We talked while we waited. Nothing heavy, just small pieces of who we used to be. Tyler told me about how he and Claire met during a leadership retreat in Tulum, how she lit up the room, how people gravitated toward her. I told him how Darren used to write me little handwritten notes in college and leave them in my bag, silly poems, inside jokes. I used to keep them in a shoebox under our bed. That box was now in the trash. Funny, I said, stirring the untouched wine in my glass, how people start as poetry and end as warnings. Tyler gave a soft laugh, more like an exhale with feeling. He looked at me, something warm and broken in his expression. You deserved more. So did you. There was no spark in that moment. No budding connection. Just recognition. A quiet nod from one wounded heart to another. The sound of tires crunching on gravel made both of us go still. Tyler glanced at me. I looked back. Here it comes. We didn't speak. Didn't move. The front door creaked open and there they were. Mason stepped in first, grinning, hand on Claire's lower back like he owned the room. Their laughter echoed briefly, then died the moment they saw us.
Me.
Tyler. Side by side.
Calm.
Still. Waiting. Mason froze, blinked hard, like the image couldn't be real. Claire's entire face dropped. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. What? What are you doing here? Mason stammered, his voice climbing into something desperate. Tyler stood up slowly, walked over to the table, and opened the folder. You might want to sit down, he said, voice even and low. Mason didn't move. Claire reached for the back of a chair, like her legs were giving out. These are hotel receipts, I said, rising to my feet. Your texts. Emails. Photos. I've seen it all. Mason. The pink lace. The wine. The lies. He shook his head too fast. Too desperately. Wait, Harper, it's not what you think. Don't insult me, I said flatly. I'm not here to argue. I'm here, so you can't pretend anymore. Tyler walked toward Claire, holding out a separate sheet. You used our joint account. $10,000. Labeled it as a business investment. Claire's mouth parted. Her eyes widened. Tyler, wait. I didn't think you'd ever see that. It was for Jake. He needed rehab, and I didn't know how to ask you. So you stole it? He asked, voice sharp. And then brought another man to the cabin I built for us? She folded into a chair, her hand covering her face, mascara already smudging at the edges. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Mason still hadn't moved. His face had gone pale. His mouth opened, then closed again, like his brain couldn't catch up. This is insane, he finally spat. You're blowing things out of proportion. I walked up to him, holding an envelope.
Calm.
Measured. You want to talk about proportion? I asked. Let's talk about how I paid off your gambling debt in 2019 while you promised to start fresh. Or the cabin you keep bringing her to. That's in my name, Mason. You couldn't get approved for the mortgage. I paid for it. Every month. You've been using me like a credit card with a heartbeat. His jaw clenched. You said that was a gift. I laughed. Just once. A sharp, hollow sound. A gift? You mean like your affair? Tyler sat again across from Claire, who was now silently crying. You didn't just cheat, he told her. You built a life behind my back. You stole from me. And you made him the center of your peace, while I stood on the outside trying to understand why you were pulling away. She didn't respond. Just shook her head like none of this was happening. The room felt like it had sunk a few feet lower, as if gravity had grown heavier, dragging all of us closer to the truth. I turned to Mason. I'll be staying with my sister for a while. When I get back, I'll send the divorce papers. I suggest you find another place to stay that doesn't belong to me." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Tyler stood, quietly gathering the papers into the folder again. "You two can have the rest of the weekend," he said, voice like flint. "I'll have the locks changed Monday." And just like that, we walked out. No more lies. No more pretending. Just silence, and two lives collapsing behind us. They had no words. None that mattered. For the next 20 minutes, Tyler and I let the silence do the heavy lifting. We didn't raise our voices. We didn't throw accusations like daggers. We didn't need to. The proof was all there, cold, clear, undeniable. We laid everything out on the table: the texts, the hotel bookings, the duplicate playlists, the credit card statements. Each piece a hammer cracking their fantasy. And they didn't fight back. No yelling. No grand gestures of denial. No tears that asked for sympathy. Just silence. Heavy and guilty. The kind of silence that told you they knew. That every excuse they had rehearsed in their heads vanished the second truth stared them in the face. Claire sat curled up on the edge of the couch, her fingers pulling at the hem of her oversized sweater. Mason leaned against the wall, jaw tight, arms folded, but his posture had collapsed. They looked like strangers in their own story, caught in a moment they didn't write and could no longer control. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt done. Finished. Like a long chapter finally closing with nothing left on the last page. "I'm not asking for apologies," I said, my voice calm, stripped of emotion. "I just want you to know that we see you now. The curtain's down. You don't get to hide behind excuses anymore." Tyler nodded beside me. "And you're not welcome in the lives you tried to ruin. You made a choice. We're making ours now." They looked at us like we were speaking another language. And in a way we were. Because we weren't playing their game anymore. We were outside the mess now, two people burned by the same flame, standing in the ash with nothing left to lose. We weren't there for revenge. We weren't there to twist the knife. We were there so they couldn't keep lying to us, to each other or themselves. The truth had settled into the room, thick and unmoving, like fog that refused to lift. And just as Tyler reached for his coat and I turned toward the door, Claire broke the silence. "I'm pregnant." The words came out barely above a whisper, but they dropped into the room like a bomb. Every bit of composure shattered in an instant. I froze, hands still on the doorknob. Tyler stiffened next to me, as if her words had turned his spine to steel. Mason's head snapped toward Claire so fast it looked like whiplash.
"What?"
Tyler's voice was flat, like the calm before a tornado. Claire was shaking now, tears already returning. "I found out last week," she whispered, eyes locked on Tyler. "It's yours." You could feel the shift in the air, like a storm building inside a sealed room. All the control we'd fought so hard to maintain, the quiet, the stillness, the restraint, it cracked under the weight of that one truth. Tyler didn't move. He stared at her like he was looking at someone he'd never seen before. His fists clenched, and his throat worked hard to swallow. I could feel him breathing beside me, slow, hard, deliberate. Mason staggered back a step. "You said it was just a fling. That it wasn't serious." Claire didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on Tyler, pleading. "I wasn't going to tell you.
I didn't know how.
But now you know. You deserve to know." I watched it unfold like a scene I wasn't part of anymore. There was no jealousy. No heartbreak. Just silence. I had no more tears to give the story. Whatever pain I had left drained out of me with her words. This wasn't about heartbreak now. It was about freedom. Mason turned to me, suddenly desperate. "Harper, please. This doesn't have to end us. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But I love you. We can fix this." I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag and pulled out the manila envelope I'd brought with me. The divorce papers I'd had drawn up days ago. I walked to the coffee table and placed them in front of him. "It already ended, Mason," I said, softly but firmly. "It ended the moment you chose her. The moment you lied to my face and walked out that door for a weekend you didn't earn. He opened his mouth like he was about to argue, but when he looked into my eyes, something in him fell quiet. He knew. Deep down, he knew there was nothing left to save. Tyler still hadn't said a word. He stood frozen, breathing heavily, his jaw tight. Then finally he spoke, his voice hoarse and low. "I'll take care of the baby," he said. "If it's mine, I'll do what's right. But I can't give you anything more than that."
Not now.
Maybe not ever. Claire tried to reach for him. "Tyler, please." But he stepped back. One foot, then another. A deliberate retreat. "You took something from me I can't get back," he said, eyes shining but unflinching. "You didn't just betray me. You dismantled the foundation I thought we had. I can't stand on that anymore." Claire turned to me then, her voice thin and cracking. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." I stared at her, calm and unmoved. "You didn't just hurt us. You betrayed yourself. You built your life on mirrors and mist. People who lie to themselves are the most dangerous of all because they drag others into their delusions. You don't just need to apologize. You need to figure out who you even are." Her eyes welled up again, but I didn't stay to watch. Tyler moved to the door and opened it. Cold air rushed in like a reset button. Without another word, we stepped out into the crisp morning, the silence behind us louder than any argument could ever be. The cabin loomed behind us like a monument to every broken promise. Beautiful, expensive, empty. We didn't talk as we walked to our cars. We didn't need to. Some closures don't come with slammed doors or screaming matches. Some come quietly, in silence, in the simple act of walking away. And we did. We left them behind in that cabin, left them to sit in the wreckage they built and the truth they tried to outrun. 6 months later, I woke up to the sound of waves outside my window. The air smelled of salt and pine, and golden morning light crept across the hardwood floor of my new home, a small coastal cottage on a hill in Port Townsend. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. Every nail, every beam, every windshield I hung on the porch. I chose it all. No one handed it to me. No one lied their way through it. This was mine. There was peace in the quiet. There was freedom in starting over. I made coffee and stood barefoot on the porch, watching the sun rise over the water. The cold air bit at my skin, but I didn't mind. It reminded me I was alive. Behind me were ashes. Ahead of me was everything I hadn't dared to imagine yet. The divorce had been quick.
Clean.
Easier than I expected, considering the weight of what had led us there. Mason didn't fight me, not really. Maybe he knew he didn't have the strength, or maybe he was just too ashamed to face what he'd done. Some people can't own their mistakes, but Mason, he folded under them. Quietly. Legally, I walked away with the bulk of our assets. The downtown condo was mine, along with the joint investment accounts. Our savings. The retirement fund I had mostly built. The cabin? I sold it back to him at market value, just as I said I would. He took it, but I later heard from a friend of a friend that he hardly visits anymore. It sits mostly empty, vacant like the promises we built there. Word traveled, as it always does in a city like Seattle. Mason's image began to slip, just a little at first. Whispers around boardroom tables. A few missed promotions. A colleague tells another colleague, he's been off lately. No scandals, no headlines, just a quiet erosion. Reputation doesn't always collapse with a bang. Sometimes, it decays like water damage behind a wall, silent, slow, but inevitable. Claire had the baby, a girl. Tyler sent me a picture once, a tiny hand curled around his finger. Her name was Elise. I didn't ask for anything more. Not because I didn't care, but because I had no space left in my life for things that weren't mine to carry. That chapter had closed. Tyler and I stayed in touch. There was no spark, no hidden longing, just understanding, respect. A kind of emotional honesty that comes only from walking through fire beside someone else. We'd meet for coffee now and then. Share quiet updates. He'd tell me about work. I'd ask about Elise. He once told me he was looking at houses outside the city, something with a garden and a swing set. I sent him a few listings when I came across them. It was simple. No expectations. No drama. In the meantime, I started something of my own. It began with a single blog post. Late at night, in my small cottage by the sea, I wrote about the reality of betrayal, not the sensational kind, but the quiet kind that guts you in private. I talked about finances, survival, and rebuilding. I thought maybe a few women would read it, but it resonated. It spread. Women reached out, first by email, then in online meetups. Eventually, it grew into something tangible, a support group, then a workshop, and finally, a full-fledged business. Today, I run a financial counseling service for women rebuilding after betrayal. Divorced women, widows, women who gave everything and were left with nothing. I help them see the numbers, but more than that, I help them see their worth, their dignity, their potential. It's quiet work, but strong, necessary. And somewhere in the middle of all that, helping others stand tall again, I started finding pieces of myself I had packed away for years. I started painting again. Nothing grand, just small canvases with waves, trees, wild skies. I took long walks without needing a destination, letting my mind wander further than my feet. I started reading poetry in the mornings, barefoot on the porch with a mug of coffee warming my hands. I learned how to sit with myself, and better yet, how to enjoy it. One evening, I received an invitation to a charity gala in Seattle. It was from an old colleague at the design firm. I almost declined, unsure if I was ready for the noise, the lights, the chance of seeing familiar faces. But something inside me whispered go. So I did. The venue was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, chandeliers casting soft glows on silk dresses and dark suits. I wore a deep green gown I had kept in the back of my closet for years and paired it with a simple gold necklace my grandmother once gave me. The kind of jewelry that doesn't shine too loudly, but carries its own quiet strength. I was speaking with someone from a women's shelter when I saw him. Mason. He stood near the bar, drink in hand, talking to a man in a navy suit. His posture was different, less sure. He looked thinner, tired, like someone carrying too much weight in his smile. There was a time I would have walked over, heart pounding. A time I would have rehearsed what to say.
But not now.
Our eyes met briefly. He gave me a small, uncertain smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. I returned a polite nod. Nothing more. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pity either. I felt calm.
Detached.
Like watching a rerun of a film I used to love, but no longer needed to finish. The ending had already played out. I'd written a new one. I didn't walk over. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a very long time, I didn't feel like anyone's wife. I didn't feel like someone's mistake, someone's backup plan, or someone trying to hold a crumbling world together. I just felt like Harper. Whole. Healing. And exactly where I was meant to be.